Tacitus Today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining us audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the Steve McQueen movie from the 1960s called Bullitt. Now, I think this came out in like 1967, 68, and I didn't see it until, I was too young to see it then, but I didn't see it until multiple reruns later. But when I saw it for the first time, I would have been, I don't know, a teenager, and I quite liked it. I liked the car chase scene. There were quite a few things in it I didn't understand, but I didn't sort of realize the inserted propaganda into it. As a kid, I just didn't see that. It just went over my head. And did it have any effect on me, like subliminally or something like that? I don't think so. Maybe it did. And I didn't. Again, I just didn't see the propaganda in it. Maybe the things that attracted me the most were the car chase scenes, the shootouts or that sort of stuff. The subtle interplays between some of the characters that as an adult I could see and understand. As a kid, they either went over my head or I considered them as irrelevant or something like that. And it's interesting to notice the difference in perspective between, say, a 14-year-old looking at a movie and then looking at a movie as a 40-year-old, and how you see things quite differently. And then given again how race gender hustling has been ruthlessly exploited by the globalists all over the Western world, how I see that same movie as a 60-year-old, and I see it differently from how I did as a 40-year-old. As in, I now see it in a wider globalist race gender hustling context, which I didn't necessarily see it so much as a 40-year-old, and not at all as a 14-year-old. But I wanted to talk about a few things in the Bullitt movie. Now, Steve McQueen is sort of portrayed as he's a macho tough guy, and he can duke it out with the murderers and the assassins and the boys with the pump action shotguns that are trying to shoot. Steve McQueen's not fazed by those guys. He just kicks ass. And so he's presented as this macho dude that gets things done. And but his girlfriend, who's played by Jacqueline Bisset, who I think was about half his age at the time. I think Steve McQueen was like 36 or 37, and she would have been 19, I think, then. So this is an English girl. And so now she is portrayed in this movie Bullitt, as some sort of mathematical engineering genius, way smarter than him. I mean, he is so fucking dumb next to her. She is the super smart chick, way ahead of the curve. Engineering, like concepts of volumetric flow and all that. I mean, she is kick-ass mathematician. So already you see this, it's like, how many women in the whole world would have been in that category who were at that age and who looked as hot as, she's a bit scrawny, I thought, but they could look as hot as Jacqueline Bisset. And what, there would have been zero in the whole world, but they've got this here in the, so he might be a big tough guy, but he, not only is she the smartest chick in the whole universe, and from an engineering mathematical point of view, but he accepts that, he defers to her. He may be the super tough guy carrying a gun and everything, but he defers to her genius and greatness. She is just way smarter than him. Simple as. And he accepts it. Maybe a tough guy, but he accepts her supremacy in this area. I mean, wow, what a guy. What a guy. What a model he is for manhood going forward. So, no, I didn't pick up on that as a kid. I remember looking at it. I saw it again. I don't know, part of it as probably early to mid-20s. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, what are they trying to make out this chick some mathematical genius? That's bullshit. So I was already starting to sort of wake up to it, whereas, again, as a 14-year-old, I didn't really register with me. And so now the next thing, so that, a woman being superior to a man and the macho man accepts her superiority, that was propaganda piece number one. Propaganda piece number two was the surgeon in the hospital that some guy gets shot up and taken to the hospital. the surgeon in the hospital, who's their best surgeon, best by far, absolutely, way ahead of the curve here. Genius upon genius when it comes to medicinal practice, is a young black man. Now, the plausibility of that is about zero, but nonetheless, now he's the best of the best. I mean, you don't get surgeons this good, and he's black and he's young. But these evil, racist, bigoted, fascist, xenophobic, Nazi white men come along. They don't appreciate this black doctor's greatness and his genius and all that sort of thing, and they just want him gone just because he's black. No other reason. Damn xenophobe, racist, Nazis. No. So that's propaganda piece number 2. Now, in order to set it up as being propaganda, they have to have the black guy in the, he is the genius surgeon in the hospital. Now, what are the chances about how many head chief surgeons were there in the entire United States at that stage who were black? I mean, you could count them on one hand, and they definitely weren't as young as this guy. And so, this is bullshit. But it's again just a launching pad for propaganda, demonstrate how evil, fascist, and Nazi these white men, damn bigots they are. Now, neither of these were realistic. They were clearly propaganda pieces that were inserted in there, and I was sort of a little surprised, but the race and gender hustling architecture, although even that was softer and more subtle there, that was already in place. So they got a movie. So they got Steve McQueen, big star back in the day, big star, and they've got an action-packed movie. They know this is going to, or can be pretty sure this is going to do well at the box office, which it did. It did quite well. Had a great car chase scene, and a Mustang and everything. So they have this, they know this movie is going to attract a lot of eyeballs. And so they're sitting around planning what propaganda they will insert and how they will insert it. Now, if you look at both propaganda scenes or primary propaganda scenes, they both have that element of they were cobbled into the movie. They were inserted purely for propaganda purposes. They weren't, the continuity of the scene, it just wasn't right. It just didn't work. So they were cobbled together for the sole purpose of let's insert propaganda scenes. Let's do it on race. Let's do it on gender. And this was happening again in 1966, 67, 68. Now, they're the same people who, the same sort of people with the same attitudes and from the same activist groups who produced, scripted and directed Bullitt were the same people who did In the Heat of the Night, which had, a really very heavy-handed propaganda stuck throughout. And both movies are quite good in their way, but they have heavily inserted propaganda. Now, eventually, over time, the idea that the movie should be entertainment was discarded, and all movies, anything that may attract sort of eyeballs, became a propaganda delivery system. But I just wanted to highlight that architecture of race, gender, not the gay lesbian stuff that came a bit later, but the race, gender hustling, that was there from the 1960s. And as a kid, I kind of didn't see it. It seemed irrelevant to the movie, and so I didn't quite sort of follow it. But did it affect me? I don't know. I don't think so. I've never had anything. I wasn't brought up in a situation where race and gender hustling were issues. So I just didn't see it. I wasn't exposed to, radical Jewish activism until I started going to the United States. And when I was first around Northeast United States, I was quite shocked by the intense, angry, radical activism of the Jewish activists. So, because I'd never encountered it before. I had Jewish people at school and other students and friends. I never even thought about it. Never even crossed my mind. So that you inject angry activism into all forms of social interaction in media and entertainment and so on is very much a North American thing, I think, and they've busily exported it to the rest of the world. While they're doing that, they accuse everyone else of being consumed in hatred And the duplicity is mind-boggling. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.